holding his shoes and wear it.
I've been doing that.
Yeah, he's been doing that. If, worst case scenario, they'll remove the toe.
So is it your little toe?
No, it's his second toe.
Well, you might be better off just go ahead and remove a toe.
It's not his hand, so that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, no, it's his.
You get us online, boys?
We're online, we're live.
All right.
Well, it depends on what buttons the previous class presses as to how that thing reacts. And it's always, seems like every Sunday it's different. But anyway, we're live. It's Sunday, October the 9th. We're the fellowship class here at Hampton First Baptist Church in beautiful downtown Hampton. And you folks with us and our YouTube group as well. Some class business. Next Sunday, as far as I know today, things change daily. I'm going to be at St. Simon's next Sunday with my oldest son and his wife and my two meanest grandkids. They're the youngest grandkids. They're 5 and 2. So anyway, the 2-year-old thinks he's 12. So anyway, it's gonna be a good time. Looking forward to see their new house down at St. Simon's and so forth. And Mr. David Mitchell has volunteered to share with you next Sunday. So I'm sure David will have something wonderful.
Y'all like football?
We'll have something wonderful to share.
If my voice is weird, I might have to ask Mr. Gary to read for me or something. It comes and goes.
I understand.
But
So,
I'll try, sir.
well, I appreciate you trying very much. And
It was mainly one.
I will, since stuff prepared, give you something you can look at and work on if you want to. It's always optional, but at least you'll have your regular stuff. And then on Thursday, I will come by the church office and leave the next week's stuff with Lisa to put in the pouch here, and David can pass it out. So I'll keep everything
So
moving
you're gonna be
on.
gone for 2 weeks?
No, 1 week.
But we'll have homework for 2 weeks.
But I'm gonna give you no, it's not homework, it's optional Bible study.
That we do at home.
That you can do it in the front yard.
It's not work.
You can
it's
do
fun.
it.
Don't argue with him, he always wins the battle at our house.
But it's wherever you wanna do it. I'm sure that, you can do it on the front porch, the back porch, you can do it at the lake. I mean, wherever you happen to, your happy spot. But I will keep this stuff going. And
I
so-
do it in our winter,
Now,
Where I
what
use
room
them.
was that?
the winter parlor.
The winter parlor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a summer parlor?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize your house was that large. You had parlors is it just 2? How many parlors do you have? You got a winter and a summer,
2.
just 2.
Mhm.
So you don't have a fall one? Okay.
No,
but you
I'm in the winter parlor all year around. It's upstairs.
Oh, okay. So you've been banished
But the winter
upstairs.
it's winter, no, I live upstairs, she lives downstairs.
Oh, okay.
She owns the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
But, it's the winter parlor because heat rises and it's warmer up there than it is in the summer parlor.
I understand that.
I don't know how any heat can rise in that house. The walls are 14 inches thick or better.
16
16 inches thick,
16
yeah.
to 18.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
they're-
it was built a
they're
couple of
thick.
years ago.
It's very tight,
Yes,
very, very,
very
very
snug.
comfortable.
Got some pretty neat woodwork in the,
I can imagine.
ceilings.
But anyway, I'll go ahead and keep things moving along, even though, and David can speak on whatever subject he wants to. I'm sure he, there's 66 books. I'm sure he's found something in one of them to share. Now,
There's on football.
November is coming up, the second Sunday. We gotta do our Calvary Refuge Ministry. Does anybody have any ideas on what kind of meal we would like to serve?
Well, first of all, they're now letting people do like we used to do, stay there and serve and present a lesson if they want to. And some classes are doing that and others, because of the COVID's still going around, or not. So we need to decide, do we want to do that or not do that, or do we want to just drop it off, or what we feel on that. Because if we're gonna stay there and serve, we need several people to go. If not, then we only need, 2 or 3 to drop the food off. So anybody got any feeling what they wanna do in that regard?
My concern would be
We'll
with
be out
COVID,
of, we'll be out of the country.
Mhm.
with COVID, they still say, and we're still getting boosters, and we're gonna be around people that are out on the streets. We don't know. whether
It'd
that
still be good time to just drop it off.
Yeah.
As long as they're receptive to that, and then they have been.
They're very receptive to that. We just have to let them know. Yes, Mary?
I suggest that since it's no, that's just my suggestion.
I'm listening to other input. I mean, we need to kind of get moving towards something, because we did above and beyond once this year, so better for 50.
I think we need to do something simple like spaghetti, or have salads, and then, or hot dogs and potato salad, coleslaw, or whatever. Something simple like that. 'Cause
Well,
last
it's
time
simple
wasn't
at
simple.
Walmart.
Do what?
I said it's simple at Walmart. Fried chicken. Not
Well, you
expensive.
could get fried chicken in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for 50 people, that's, whoa there, buddy.
Well,
Whoa. Okay. All right,
I'm okay.
all right, hold it. Just lay there a second. Lay there a second.
I'm okay.
All right.
I was a paramedic for 8 years.
You dizzy when you bend over?
Yeah, it just,
That thing would be easy to fall over. Here, check the.
Double check his chair.
chair.
Okay.
The legs all right, they're not wobbling.
Sorry for the interruption. Glasses. You have your glasses, they over there.
I can't wear glasses. Can't see.
Glad you're okay.
Anyway, my thing with spaghetti is, how do we transport it? That's, I mean,
Well, you'd have to kinda mix it all together and everything, have it already mixed when you take it.
yeah, start out, you'd have to cook it, get all the sauce, get it pre-mixed, and have some kind of containers.
Well, we could cook it
Just
here.
take it in the pots.
We could cook it here and then, mix it here and everything, just take one big pot over there and dump it in their pot.
Yeah, they got plenty of pots,
Yeah.
as we know from
Yeah.
previous things, so.
And maybe
It's gonna
some-
be more than one pot if you're planning on 50.
Well, we gotta, remember, we're planning for 50 people,
That's what I said. You gotta have
36 and
More
14.
more than one pot for 50 people.
Would depend, yeah, I would think so. I wouldn't wanna take great big pots, I
No.
would take something we could easily
I'm
carry.
thinking about these, the
Yeah.
big stew pots.
Yeah. So,
2 of those ought to be enough.
Buy some ground beef and that ragu and
and we just need some kind.
Well, I think we
Outgoing again. Of course, it's getting cold weather and so forth, so. What, you
We've
know,
got plenty of time to discuss it, talk about it.
I just, we just need to come up with some kind of a menu so we can move forward.
We got one
Think
minute.
about dessert.
Well, Ellen and I, unfortunately cannot say much because we will be out of town that week. that whole week.
Understood, yeah,
I mean, something been planned 6 months, so.
I understand. So, I'm flexible as far as the menu, and I think the people at the refuge center, enjoy variety as well, just like we do, so whatever y'all,
we could do hot dogs too. We can boil them right here and, or grill them, either one, and throw them in the buns and seal them up. And we can do that too.
It seems like to me, when we first, or whatever, I don't know if it should be.
But you might not have the same people
No.
every week, so I wouldn't think that'd make a difference.
the director is still the same director. The other people that are there are new. They completely redid the staff because people left because of COVID.
we need to decide.
I think it would be best if we decide what we're going to do and we do it and tell them. Cause they're gonna accept anything.
They're gonna be grateful no matter what we do.
Right,
And we're
if
not
we
gonna do
show
anything
up,
shabby.
they're grateful. Because there's, like I told you last time, there are churches that are on the list that don't show up.
That's poor.
So, we just need a menu so we can, have a target, so we'll know, what to start planning, for the week ahead, so we're ready on that Sunday, so. Anyway. Let's see, Operation Christmas Child is getting started, and get ready for all of that. The stuff at the cafe in back here, that table should start having things on it, so, be aware, if you want to put a stuffed, whatever they make back there in your shoebox.
It's a Salvation doll. It comes from the WMUSO group.
Oh, okay,
They got the shoe boxes put together back here in the conference room, so.
okay. Anyway, we're, beginning to roll here, so, if you're gonna participate, be sure, get your shoebox, get the stuff that you wanna put in your shoebox, whether it's for a boy or girl, and get ready, it's that time of year, and, it's always exciting for, when that happens, and so forth. Okay, I got that, and I got that, and I've gone through that list. Okay, now we can actually get into the lesson. We've got all of our business taken care of. Yes,
Just a side note. Mother and I went to the funeral for Suzanne Muhammad yesterday. And Gracie and Dick were there, and Gracie got very ill during the service and had to leave. And she felt like she was going to pass out. She was upset stomach and dizziness and all that. So we got her to the car, and when Mother and I got home, then we called her to make sure they had gotten home okay, and he had gotten her inside, and she was in the bed. So we didn't expect to see her today, but it's a concern
Sure.
that she couldn't, I mean, it was only an hour's service and she couldn't sit through it. So, I'm real concerned about her. And we're real grateful that Carol came home.
Yes. Well, I wanted to go to the service yesterday, but I had grandkids issues and I couldn't get away from that. But we need to pray. And also, as it stands today, baptized on Sunday, October the 23rd at 9:30, at the 9:30 worship service. So, on that Sunday, we will meet in the auditorium, go through her baptism, and once that's over, then we will come back in here for a short lesson.
Okay.
So, as it stands today, based on what Craig told me, her recent illness may change that. But as it stands today, she will be baptized on Sunday the 23rd at 9:30. And we will go in there. She wants the class to be there to see her baptism. And I told her
I think that yesterday was a matter of stress and the fact that the church was full. It was a small church, and it was full, and it felt very close, you know, in there. It was warm and felt very close, and I'm hoping that she will bounce back.
Right.
But I plan to visit her,
Okay.
just to check on her.
Yeah, I started to say it's a bad thing when that happens, and
Yeah.
so forth. So, okay, but anyway, I just wanted to share that. Greg was talking to me. Of course, I don't think he knew what happened yesterday, and hopefully, like Mary said, it'll be a very quick recovery, and she will be able to be baptized on the 23rd. And because she's real excited about taking that step. She talked to me at great lengths about it, privately, about what she wanted to do and why she was doing what she was doing. And I told her I thought she was doing the right thing. If that's where she felt like if that's what she felt like she needed to do, then that's what she should do. And that's what.
Yesterday was different for Gracie, I think, because being raised Methodist, there is a difference in services. Yesterday's service, in my opinion, was an old-time Baptist service. Old time. Oh.
Camp meeting type.
It
Sort of
was
like-
very emotional, but not, I mean, nobody wept out loud, but it was very emotional and very sweet and very revealing as to where our hearts were.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe that Gracie's not well, we know that. But I think it was, her illness was somewhat emotional and added to her physical problems. But
Mm-hmm.
it was sweet service.
That's great.
And Gracie and Suzanne were pretty close. They talked a lot on the
Yeah.
telephone.
Yeah.
They were very close.
Okay. Well, let's remember Don Mohammed and his family, and as they're dealing with this loss, and then let's remember Grace, is hopefully she, like I said, will get straightened out, get recovered, and be able to get back on track with everything. Okay, we're in our last lesson of Unit 1, where we're talking about God's Word, and next week we'll start our Unit 2, which is Jesus' words, and so forth. But this week we're going to look at John chapter 20. Let me ask a question. Pastor Craig at 9:30 started the worship service. If Craig would have got up at the 9:30 service and asked the people, how many of you believe that Jesus was crucified, buried, and resurrected on the third day, what percentage of the congregation would stand up?
100%.
Okay.
No,
They would stand up.
maybe 50%.
I think that they would stand up regardless.
Of whether they believed it or not.
If they didn't believe it, they would be in that frame of mind where they wouldn't want anybody else to judge them.
But I don't think that would ever happen. Craig would never do that. Number one, because he knows it would lose a lot of people if they were having to, and they'd be embarrassed not to stand up, so even if they didn't believe.
Right. And so that's,
Agree with me.
and that's where you get into this, depending on where you are as to the response.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's pretend I think we still have Thursday night football, and let's pretend that this Thursday, the Atlanta Falcons are playing on Thursday night football at home, wherever their home stadium is. Pastor Craig gets up, asks that crowd of people the same question, what percentage would stand up?
5%.
Mm-hmm. Maybe 20%.
Maybe, right. Depending on where you are when you ask the question dictates the response. Like you said, if you're in church, probably everybody's gonna stand up
Mm-hmm.
just because nobody wants to be embarrassed.
Nobody wants to be the odd man out.
Right. But if you go to a football stadium on a Thursday night, people don't care. So you're going to get a different response depending on where you are. And it's interesting because in today's lesson, Jesus told his disciples over and over and over, 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
he told them what was going to happen, and still they didn't believe. And you say, now these 12 were together with him for pretty much little over 3 years. And they see him do these miracles and do all this stuff, and yet he tells them 3 times, it's recorded in the book of Matthew and the book of Luke, 3 times he tells them this, and they're like, I don't understand. And it's Old Testament, the same thing.
He's not supposed to.
The Old Testament tells us he's coming and he's going to die, and nobody, they still don't believe. And you think, why did the 12 not believe? It's so interesting that you're told over and over and over, and for some reason it doesn't sink in. But anyway, that's sort of the lesson today. Why didn't they catch on? What was the difference? Chapter 20, verse 1. Now on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb early, while it was still dark, and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. We could spend the rest of the day talking about just this one verse. We know that the first day of the week is Sunday. The Sabbath was the seventh day. Sunday was the first day of the week, so it's early Sunday morning. Mary Magdalene, whom, if you go back and look, Jesus removed 7 demons from her. Not just one, but 7 from her. And since then, she had been following Jesus very closely. If you read back in I think it's the 19th chapter of John, Mary Magdalene was at the foot of the cross, along with 3 other ladies. So she was in step with Jesus because she was so grateful for what he had done for her life. And it kind of reflects back, are we following Jesus that close for what he's done in our life? If God has saved us, we ought to be thankful. He's, very grateful. So she is at the cross. Now she's up very, very early in the morning to go back and put spices on the body. That's, she's dedicated. And she gets there and the stone's rolled away. Now we know from the other accounts that Mary Magdalene is not by herself. There's, I think, 2 other or 3 other ladies with her, but John is only giving this account. So, the stone has been rolled away. Now, we don't know at what point the stone was rolled away. We know who rolled it away, but when it happened, we don't know. Then she ran and came to Simon Peter and the other disciple. Now, in the book of John, John doesn't use his name. He says the other disciple. That's just John's style of writing. He calls himself the other disciple. And he gives a little bit of hint. He says, whom Jesus loved and said to them. So, obviously, Simon, Peter, and John are up moving about early in the morning because she finds, which further indicates that she's not by herself, do not know where they have laid him. So, the assumption is that Jesus' body had been stolen. Even though he's told them 3 times, I'm going to rise again on the 3rd day, the assumption is they have taken the Lord out of the tomb. There's no she doesn't even mention, well, maybe he resurrected. He told us that. There's nothing said about that. It's the assumption is that they have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they laid him. Peter therefore went out, and the other disciple, and they were going to the tomb. So Peter and John decided, well, we're going to go find out. So they both ran together, and the other disciple outran Peter and came to the tomb first. We believe John is the youngest, Peter's the oldest, so the youngest outruns Peter, and that's sort of kind of to be expected. He's probably a little faster than Peter was, but he outruns them. So they are in a hurry to find out what's going on. And he, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen cloths laying there. Yet he did not go in. Okay, John's the youngest. He gets there. He looks in. He sees the burial cloths laying on the stone slab. You know, there's no body. But he doesn't go in. He's, you know, I'm not sure about this. In verse 6, then Simon Peter came following him and went into the tomb, and he saw the linen cloths laying there. So now Simon Peter's a little more brave, and so he actually goes in. And if you go to Israel and you go to some of the various places where they think Jesus may have been laid, you can, in one of them, you can actually go into the tomb and look around into a tomb, sort of see how they did that back then in these large slabs of rocks that are about, 7 foot long and about 3 feet wide. You know, how they got all that stuff in there took a lot of work and a lot of time, but anyway, it's one of those things, and the linen cloths laying there, that's unbelievable. And verse 7, and the handkerchief that had been around his head, not lying with the linen cloth, but folded together in a place by itself. Now, if you read Albert Ehrenstein's book, The Life and Times of Jesus the Messiah, this thing about the handkerchief that was around his head being folded, if you read that book, he tells you that a carpenter in Jesus' day, when they finished a piece, they would wipe it down with a handkerchief. They would take the handkerchief, fold it neatly, and put it on the item, whether it was a table, a chair, whatever, and place that there. That means the project is finished.
Ooh.
So that's significant in the fact that, when Jesus resurrected, he remembered his days as a carpenter and folded that napkin up just like he would have done had he built a table for someone when he worked with his father in the carpentry shop. And he folded that napkin and placed it not with the burial cloth, but in a different location, signifying that the work had been finished. So that's one of the things that further proves that, he rose from the dead, and Jesus, I believe, folded that napkin once he was resurrected, folded that napkin as he left the tomb.
That is something that I ponder about. Somewhere in my youth, I was told about Jewish tradition that if a master at the table had to get up and leave the table, he would fold his napkin and place it there. He wouldn't just throw it down the side of the plate. He was through, and they call it in King James, they call it a napkin. So someone, maybe my grandmother, gave it to me, and this is something I look forward to studying, is that if they put the napkin, if they throw the napkin down there through, if they fold it, he said, he's not through with his work. So that's confusing to me.
Mm-hmm. But I think we see here that Peter goes in, he's the oldest. Peter's a little bit more outgoing, I would say, than maybe John is. And so Peter goes in and finds that the napkin has been, or handkerchief has been placed by itself. Then in verse 8, then the other disciple who came to the tomb first went in also. Okay, so Peter goes in, sees everything appears to be okay. So John now walks in. And he saw and believed. He said, you know, Jesus is not here. For as yet they did not know the scripture that he must rise again from the dead. Then the disciples went away again to their own homes. Jesus told them over 3 times, I'm going to rise again. And yet, in verse 9, for as yet they did not know the scriptures that he must rise again from the dead.
Nobody's ever done that.
That is correct, and that's one of the points is, you know, no one has done that. Now, Jesus had raised Lazarus from the dead, but no one has ever raised themselves from the dead. In other words, Jesus raised Lazarus, but Lazarus didn't jump up one day. Jesus raised himself from the dead, and you know, and they're like, they haven't figured all this out yet. And then, you know, it's amazing how Jesus tells them over and over and over, yet they haven't quite got it yet. Now, while all this, Peter and John are doing their thing, but Mary stood outside by the tomb weeping. And as she wept, she stooped down and looked into the tomb. Okay, now Mary Magdalene's trying to get herself together. And so Peter and John had been out. They've been in the tomb, came out. Now she looks. When Mary Magdalene looked, she said she saw 2 angels in white sitting, one at the head and the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus had lain. And they said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? Now notice, Peter and John didn't see the angels. They have been in, looked, and left. Mary Magdalene is somewhere nearby the entrance, and she's weeping because she's afraid someone's stolen the body. But when she looks, there's 2 angels sitting there. Now, I'm sure that, you know, caused additional emotional distress. And she said to them, my Lord, going on the assumption that Jesus' body's been kidnapped. So it's interesting, you know, what all is going on here. And then she says, now when she said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there and did not know it was Jesus. So she turns around and there's a person there. She doesn't know who it is yet. And Jesus says, Woman, why are you weeping? Who are you seeking? The second question is one of the great ones. Who are you seeking? Who are you looking for? And she supposed him to be the gardener, said to him, Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Now you gotta remember, Jewish tradition was they had to anoint the body with these spices. And she's intent on anointing the body of Jesus. And, you know, she's willing to do this. Jesus said to her, Mary. Now, as soon as he said that, she recognized the voice. You know, this other stuff, you know, she's, you know, why are you weeping? She hasn't figured out who it is. But when she said Mary, it got her attention. She turned and said to him, Rabboni, which is to say teacher or rabbi. She recognized then when he says her name, she recognized, you know, the sheep understand my voice. And she recognized when Jesus called her name, she recognized it.
As much as she'd been around Jesus, I can't believe she didn't recognize him right off the bat. You would think that, you know.
You would think that, yes, Mary.
The meaning was hidden from them by God. He closed their ears and their hearts, and they did not understand, they could not comprehend what he was telling them, even though he told them 3 times. And she was with them, so she heard it too.
Yes, we know that Mary Magdalene, for sure on one occasion, was with them and heard Jesus tell them all this information, and she's not comprehending this first thing.
God
But,
did it.
but then when Jesus said Mary, ding, the light came on. And Jesus said to her, do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. But go to my brethren and tell them, I am descending to my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God. Now, the first part, it says, do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. Once Jesus arose from the dead, there was a waiting period, according to Jewish tradition, that you couldn't touch the person for 7 days. So she had to wait 4 more days before she could touch Jesus. Now, for us, it doesn't mean anything. We weren't raised Jewish. We weren't under the Mosaic law and the Levitical law. But she understood what was going on, and she knew she had to wait. So Jesus tells her, you know, go tell my brethren, and she, referring to the disciples, I am ascending to my Father, which is your Father, to my God, which is your God. Verse 18, Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had seen the Lord and that he had spoken these things to her. Now, the question is always, why was Mary Magdalene the first one to see Jesus after the resurrection? Anybody want to put their ideas on the table?
She anointed him for his death.
She never did. She did not anoint him for his death because she didn't, when she realized he was alive, that was no longer necessary. It says nothing in the Bible that she went through with the anointing.
Not sure about that, but one of the speculations is she got up early and was the first one there. Oh, it's Sunday morning, it's dark, and so she's out with at least 2 or 3 other women to anoint the body, and, you know, she was there first, and she didn't leave. Peter and John came and left. She didn't leave. She was there weeping because of what Jesus, you know, casting out the 7 demons. So I think it's, you know, that has something to do with it, is Jesus knew her heart and that she was
One true believer.
she was a
Totally.
true believer,
Mhm.
but
And
I also
committed.
think she was
She was committed to him.
right and cast out the demons.
The Chosen covered the first 2 events in first 2 seasons. And that was in detail about that. I can't remember all of it right now. Gary and I are having to leave, but I wanted to ask y'all to remember me in prayer Tuesday morning. I'm having going down in my esophagus. The doctor called me when she saw a report that came back, and they want to go in and make sure I don't have bleeding in that area. But she called me like 9 hours, doctor hours. So I have to be at there at 11 o'clock, so if y'all remember.
Today?
To do Tuesday. I have to be there. But I'm going to.
Okay.
Is there an emergency then?
Well, she made it sound like it was.
I mean, like, for you having to leave?
Oh, right now, I'm about to fall asleep because we've been on the road. We had that wedding, and I've got a big party afterwards. Our angel
understand.
is in town, our first granddaughter, and she lives in Iowa. So she's here, and we're doing, today's her birthday, and we're doing the party, but I couldn't stay for the sacred service anyway, but if y'all just remember me, I appreciate it.
Thank you. So be praying for you.
Before we leave
Yes.
Mary Magdalene here, in verse 13,
Yes.
Jesus again uses the term that we talked about last week, or week before last, where Jesus called his mother woman.
Yes.
And now he's calling Mary Magdalene, who is very special to him and him to her. He's calling her woman. So we talked about, you know, in our culture now, just to be called a woman could be considered derogatory. However, in those days, maybe that was not the stigma that maybe people think it is today, because here again, that's what he's called her.
He
She's
called her
obviously-
woman, that's right.
Obviously, she's special to him.
Now, let's remember, Jesus is speaking in Aramaic. The text that we have is Greek. Was translated. And now we've taken Aramaic, translated it to Greek, take the Greek, translate it to English. Okay, now the translators do the best they can with the words and the meanings that they have. So we see the word woman. Now what, you know, it depends on how, it really could probably be translated lady.
I don't think they had that word back then, maybe.
The equivalent to the word lady.
Right.
But I think your point is the
That's
word
not
translated
derogatory.
as woman both in this lesson and the previous lesson when Jesus was talking to his mother at the wedding at Cana, he called her woman. So I don't think it's as harsh as we think it is in 2022. To us, you know, you go up, well, woman, I mean, your son wouldn't call you woman.
Well,
I don't think your oldest son would refer to you as woman. Even, I'm sure he loves you dearly, but I don't think that would be a word he would use.
no.
I don't think it's disrespectful in the sense that when God created Adam and he took out the rib and made, he called her woman then.
Yes.
That was his creation. He made woman. And so I don't think it's disrespectful to call, you know, maybe in
Well, I
our
think
culture.
in the text, when we understand the Bible, we would not think that. But it's just our culture has sort of influences our thinking, and we think, well, I would never call my mother a woman. But it's interesting.
Ages down through time that the woman, the name woman, has been made into a disrespectful word, or you know.
Certainly the Lord wouldn't do her that way. We should receive it that way, that he's acknowledging her. And if you think, well, he's the Lord and he's love, he's doing it with love and respect. Here in the South, we have a habit of calling everybody ma'am. Yeah, it has a lot to do with voice deflection or inflection.
Oh, yes.
And you can say, ma'am, may I help you? Or you say, ma'am? So we as believers need to receive it with our heart and find and know that and be satisfied that he's God, and that's the way he said it.
Right, well, we just remember Jesus called Mary, his mother, woman. Jesus calls Mary Magdalene woman. Same person, two different people, and he refers to them in that way. So
Jesus is God in the flesh, and God
So I
always
think-
called us.
Right, and I think what David said, Jesus was not being derogatory or mean or disrespectful, but I think in the translations of the word that he actually used into what we have in our modern version of the Bible may not really be correct, but we have to realize if Jesus said it, it was out of love and respect. And we just need to think about that. And, you know, even though, you know, it sounds harsh, I don't think it was, but
Well, it's not like Jesus always spoke with a calm, sweet, kind voice. He did not. At one point he called, you snakes and you vipers, you know, I mean, he was capable
he was capable of
of putting
being,
somebody in their place.
oh yes, he put them in their place on a regular basis. So I think we have to realize Jesus meant what he said with love and
I
respect.
think so.
And I think
I do.
if you read the rest of the wedding at Canaan, Mary wasn't upset with what he said. She went right on. And, you know, Mary Magdalene seemed to be upset. She said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you've laid him, and I will take him away." She says, "I'll move him." I mean, she's willing to pick up the body of Jesus and move it. I mean, that's how much energy she had for Jesus. And as soon as
She
Jesus,
referred to him because she said, sir.
right,
you know, if it had been, insulting or derogatory or anything, she may not have replied back, sir.
Right, I mean, she was
She thought
very
nothing about it.
respectful. And then when he said her name, it was like she understood exactly who it was. And then she, responded, and then Jesus told her, go tell my brethren, and so she went and told them what had happened. She saw him, and she was the first one to see Jesus, I think, because Peter and John came and left. She stayed and was weeping, and she knew that, I think Jesus knew she was brokenhearted, truly brokenhearted, over what had happened, and over what she perceived to have happened. So it's interesting how, Jesus tells them over and over and over, but it takes them a while before they really catch on that, hey, he really did rise from the dead. He really is here.
And on the road to Emmaus, he was walking alongside a gardener, and the gardener didn't recognize him. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't recognize him.
Right. It's
Because he appeared to him as that gardener, as just a stranger.
yeah.
He still had a little more to take care of. Since those guys didn't get the whole point there, his disciples and all, for him to nail down or secure his message before he ascended, he had to appear to them again and witness
Mm-hmm.
and do that. So he was still getting things in order before he went up.
Right. Before he went to the mount, ascended to heaven, he had some things to do because he knew that there were questions still left to be answered in the minds of the apostles, because they hadn't put the thing together that he had risen from the dead. Because I think if Peter and John had really understood that he had raised from the dead, they wouldn't have went home. But that's just my
It's
opinion.
in God's timing, I think, maybe they did not need to know, let the cat out of the bag or something, but he proved it to Thomas. And
Correct. He had doubting Thomas, and I mean the amount of time he spent after the resurrection, proving that he had raised from the dead, and proving to his disciples who he was by the nail-scarred hands and those things. That was important for them to physically see that he had raised from the dead. He had a glorified body, and it was different because if you read the one,
I think everything was I know it was in God's perfect timing. And
Yes.
Jesus always said, I do nothing except I ask my Father. He didn't act on his own.
no, he did not.
He did
didn't.
not. Everything he did and said was because he had consulted his Father
Right.
first. And he made that clear. He said,
Right.
I can do nothing of my own.
But everything happened in perfect time, and it goes back to, we hear it over and over and over again, and yet there's still people that don't believe that he was crucified, buried, and raised from the dead. And yet we have the Bible that tells us exactly what happened, why it happened, and yet there's still people that don't believe. Just like the question about Brother Craig going to the football stadium in Escott. And I think we said, what was it, about 10, maybe 10% would acknowledge. So that's, you know, just like they had, you know, there was, you know, a lot of belief issues back then, but now they have proof that he was alive. There's proof. He showed up. He let Thomas touch him, you know, and how can you touch a person and yet the person walk through the door without opening it? I can't grasp the physical part versus the part that can walk through a door.
Only God can do that.
Right. But one day we'll be able to do that. So, you know, what can I say? But anyway, real quick, we're running out of time. Our prayer list, let's remember Glenda. Let's remember Grace Trott. Let's remember Don Mohammed. Carol is home. Let's continue to pray that Carol will get her strength back. And those things. Any other things on the prayer list that we need to?
Beverly and Walter Deason.
Right. Is Beverly any better from her flu?
I have texted her and to let her know that I was praying for her and Walter. And if she needed anything, I was there for her, but I haven't heard anything back from her.
I started to say, we tried to call one day and didn't get an answer. Wednesday maybe? I don't remember. But anyway, let's remember Beverly and Walter and their individual needs and so forth. David, if you would, please, could you give us a closing prayer, pray for our prayer list, and then I'll hand out the material.
Okay. Almighty God, you're the only source of health and healing, and in you there's calm, and the only true peace in the universe. Grant to each one of us, your children,